Happy New Year, everybody. I hope you concluded 2024 in style. Let's talk about some of the stuff that I got up to over the holiday break. Cheers to you, my friends. I hope you had a fantastic holiday break. I had a blast. I had a lot of time to chill and relax and catch up on stuff. And I thought that the first video that I should do when I come back is talk about some of the stuff that I played and watched over the holiday break. We're going to start with Minishoot Adventures. This is a game that I hit on in the last indie game feature that I put together. And I became completely obsessed with this title over the break. I completed everything that I had to do in the game. There's still a few challenge missions that I have left to do. And man, it was such a fantastic experience. It's a twin stick shooter. It's also a top-down adventure game in the style of a Legend of Zelda. And it's also kind of a bullet hell space shooter. And they fused it all together, Soul Game Studio did. And somehow all of these disparate elements which don't seem to correlate, which don't seem to kind of be a good fit for each other, really, really are. Minishoot Adventures was not only the coolest indie game that I played in 2024, it was one of the best things I experienced. I absolutely love this game. It's so addictive. The rewards are plentiful. There's also a Metroidvania kind of vibe where you're finding all the power-ups and you're able to get a little bit further into the experience. Lots of really cool secrets and puzzles. The only thing I would quibble about is the art is a little outdated. I think it could have been a little bit slicker, a little cooler. I even would have liked a more pixelated kind of vibe to it. I'm not crazy about the artistic style of it, but everything else I freaking adore, and I really hope there's more. I hope this has been a huge hit for the game. I love it, and I can score it because I played the hell out of it. I'm going to give Minishoot Adventures a 9.5 out of 10. I also went back and got reacquainted with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which I hadn't really played too much of since it initially came out at the beginning of 2024, and I was playing it on the PS5 Pro, so everything was a lot cleaner and a lot cooler looking. I was really taken aback by the diversity in the play of the game. It's maybe not the most cohesive story in the Final Fantasy games. There's a lot of stuff going on, but it also is meandering, and I think that is also the huge part of the charm of the game. Is it's just about exploration. It's about going and talking to everybody and going on all the side quests and activating all the towers and playing all of the different games when you go to the Golden Saucer and talking to all the crazy characters that you interact with. It's a stupendous experience. And yes, it's kind of like the entree into more, and there's definitely a conduit here, like stay tuned. But man, it's really hard to quibble with the quality of the play of this. The experience is tremendous in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I played some more of Metaphor Refantazio as well, and this game is really getting its hooks into me. It's a very, very charming experience. It's so sleek and so cool looking, and there's a lot of intrigue. There's a lot of duplicity between these royal factions, and you're sort of caught up in the middle of it. You're trying to define yourself and ally yourself with the right characters. And you're also augmenting yourself in these incredible ways where you're bouncing back into this metaphysical library and discovering more about the history and your own powers and these sort of mech-like abilities that you have with this alternative version of yourself as you go up against all of these creepy bosses and creatures and things. It's really, really freaking cool, and I'm just so incredibly happy for the Atlas fans out there, Atlas themselves and Sega, that they've got this whole other vertical now that they've created. Clearly, this game has been a huge success, so we can count on a sequel to this. So now Atlas has these three juggernaut RPG franchises with Persona and Shin Megami Tensei, and now Metaphor Refantazio. What an incredible game. I also took the time to finish the campaign of Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine 2, and I had a good time with the game, but I have to say that I was more impressed by the roll into the experience and starting to get to know the mechanics and some of the fiction and the lore. I do feel that this is a series now because there's so many games, so much history, that it kind of buckles under the weight of the lore. And when I compare this to something like Gears of War, which also had this elaborate backstory and all of these different elements that you have to kind of catch up on as each of those those Gears games launched into their stories, you kind of had to keep up with everything, and there is definitely an element here, but there's more here. There's a lot of different elements of rich history and allegiances and the humans going up against these grotesque alien creatures and the corrupted people and the other brainwashed humans that you will meet and fight with, and all of these religious overtones and everything. I found myself kind of scratching my head is what I'm saying. When I was playing Space Marine 2, I was like, who is this guy? And why is this guy? And why do they hate each other? But I did enjoy the mechanics of the game, particularly when I got the jetpack. But I didn't feel like the game kept escalating. I felt like there was kind of a plateau to what the game was giving back to me. And I was still having fun. I enjoyed blasting everybody and having my colleagues beside me to help me out against wave after wave of these Tyranids coming at me to break machinery or something that I needed to protect. There was a lot of that. And I don't know, there was a lot more kind of variety when I was playing Gears of War. Not every Gears of War, but the best ones, where there was quieter moments and then the real scares, some real kind of spooky survival horror type scares. And I didn't really feel that in Space Marine 2. It's still a really solid game, and I think it's definitely worth checking out. And I haven't played any of the multiplayer and co-op my way through the experience, and I think that's probably the way that the game gives you the most, where you can start to get into the customization and really kind of feel the flair and the effort there. It's certainly a very, very good-looking game. I don't think it's as good-looking as the best that we've seen from Gears of War, however. And I can't stop comparing it to Gears of War. The vibe is so similar, and it's also a little bit of a Destiny kind of vibe. I think it's good. I think it's really good. It's much better than the original Space Marine game, and it's a good starting point for Saber to kind of keep building and keep growing with the franchise. But I wasn't freaking out about it when I finished it. I'm going to give the campaign in Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine 2 an 8 out of 10. Now, I also played a lot more Astrobot than I was intending to. This is a game that really is difficult to walk away from. It was so hard for me to put the controller down and say, because they've been adding all of these challenge levels and all of these speed trials and stuff in this game, and they're very challenging, they're very difficult, but God, they're so compelling and hooky and addictive, and you get to use all of these cool abilities that Astrobot earns as you work your way through the sort of baseline campaign in here. But there's lots of characters to find. Of course, I played through that Winter Wonderland level, which is terrific, and I was just obsessed. It won the Game of the Year at the Game Awards, and it was deserving. It is an excellent game. It's a must pick up for the PlayStation 5 if you have that console. Honestly, do yourself a favor. If you have the PS5 or PS5 Pro, get this game. You will not be disappointed. But I also did spend some time catching up on some shows and seeing some movies. I went out and saw Nosferatu. This is the new one from Robert Eggers, and it stars Bill Skarsgård as the titular character. Very creepy. Nicholas Hoult is in here. Aaron Taylor Johnson is in here. Lily Rose Depp is in here, Johnny Depp's daughter. And she plays this woman that is pursued by Nosferatu across great space and time. And she is completely terrified of this creature that has her within his psychological grasp. Bill Skarsgård's voice as Nosferatu permeates throughout the whole picture, and it's incredible. It's an unbelievable escape into a different character, like Nosferatu as a role. He's just so freaking creepy looking. He's falling apart. Bits and pieces of his skin just seem to be peeling off, and he's not well. And of course, he's a vampire feeding on all kinds of different people, and you do see spurts of blood, and the color is desaturated in this, and every shot is exquisite. It's almost like you could leaf through this tourism book from 19th century Eastern Europe. All the towns that we see, all of the different costumes, the beautiful overcoats and things like that that the characters wear. I thought that Willem Dafoe, who's also in this picture, was kind of stunt casting. He's super campy and over the top. He's having fun in the role, and he's fun to watch always, but he kind of lifts you out of the experience. He's chewing the scenery a bit. He's such a familiar actor, and now he's a reused actor in Robert Eggers' work as well, and I just feel like maybe this was something that should have been recast, somebody that should have surprised us, because there's lots of excellent work from sort of lesser-known actors and character actors that impresses the hell out of you, and Willem Dafoe kind of sticks out a little bit like a sore thumb. I also wasn't that impressed by Aaron Taylor Johnson and his role as well. His character has to go through some really heavy stuff, and I feel like the performance didn't really reach those elevations. It really didn't get to that. But Nicholas Hoult is insanely good in this movie. I was so impressed with him. I am so fired up to see what he does with Lex Luthor later this year. But man, he is fantastic in this role as someone that is at first kind of just following orders and gets to know Nosferatu and is then completely abused and shocked by what this character does to him in his life, basically explodes it. And you believe that he's just going through hell and trying to just stay alive and survive this horror. But the movie itself is really impressive. I don't think it's Robert Eggers' best. I still think that The Northman is the one that I like the most. But he makes such eclectic, incredible work. He is really a visionary, and he really likes to play by his own rules with the films that he puts together. And I admire his creative sensibilities. Nosferatu is really damn cool. I'm going to give that an 8 out of 10. Towards the end of the year, I also saw a couple of animated movies. Disney's Moana 2, which I thought was a very beautiful film, but it didn't have the emotional weight and impact of the first Moana film for me. Or we're just getting to know these characters, but all of these characters are wonderful, and now they're an indelible part of the pantheon of Disney characters, so it makes a lot of sense that we're revisiting them. And the production quality and the artistic quality of everything is really high. It just doesn't eclipse what we saw in the first film. I was expecting the film to floor me with new visual elements and things that I had never seen before, and I didn't really quite feel that. There's some awesome storm sequences in here and some new characters that are introduced. I like the Coconut Head Pirates that Moana and her friends catch up with. They've got some fun bits in there. I didn't think that Maui's comedy was as well written as it was in the first film. I think The Rock came to play, but it wasn't quite as charming and effervescent as it was in the first film, and nor were the music sequences as memorable in Moana 2. Still, it was an enjoyable movie. It's definitely worth seeing. It's going to be on Disney Plus in the not too distant future if you didn't get out to the theaters to see it. But I am happy that it was such a huge blockbuster success for the movie theaters and for Disney. And I hope that it suggests that, look, you can't take your foot off the gas on releasing these animated films into theaters. Families want to go and have a good time with these things, and I think Moana 2 underlined that. I'm going to give Moana 2 a 7.5 out of 10. And I was actually a little bit more impressed with another animated movie that you may have missed. It's called Spellbound. It's on Netflix, and it's got a great cast. Rachel Zegler is in there, Nathan Lane, John Lithgow, Titus Burgess, Nicole Kidman, Javier Bardem. Lots of really good actors in this, and the story's pretty cool. It's about a king and a queen that are turned into monsters, and this princess, played by Rachel Zegler, and her court are trying to fool the public, fool the rest of the kingdom, and so they're trying to hide these monsters away from everybody. But of course, they're also trying to find the cure, and so magic users are called in, and the tale starts to escalate and become a pretty cool little adventure. But what you really start to see is that they become monsters because there's this pretty cool allegory that's told through the story of the film, and it's about some pretty complicated and uncomfortable subject matter, and I thought it was well handled. I also enjoyed the music and the singing and stuff. Not like I've been humming the music since I saw it, but I thought it was pretty damn fun in the viewing of it. I was really surprised how much I did enjoy Spellbound. I don't think it's the best of the best in the animated world by any means, but I think you might be pleasantly surprised if you give Spellbound a shot. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. Another game that I've been playing quite a bit of, because I know this is what happens with everybody that tries it, is Batro. I've been checking it out on Apple Arcade on my iPhone, and it is really addictive. It is a poker-style game where you're trying to get great hands, but you're also unlocking all kinds of new cards that give you new abilities and lots of different ways to kind of combo up your score. It's almost like a roguelike as well, because you try to keep playing hand after hand after hand and get as far as you can until you're out, and then you have to start over again, but you get to keep some of the money and buy new packs and new cards and things, and so you get a little bit further every time. And the graphics and animation are pretty simplistic. It's a card game after all, but there are some cool little flourishes and things, little hooks, these visual hooks that keep you engaged. There's definitely an insidious and addictive, wonderful design to all of it as well. Batro is a very special game, and I can't believe what a great pickup it is for Apple Arcade as well. And if you've got a subscription and you've got an iPhone, an iPad, an Apple TV, or a Mac, make sure you download Batro. It's very freaking cool. In terms of TV shows that I was able to catch up on over the holiday break, I watched some episodes of Shrinking. I actually watched that to the end of season 2. You know, my boy Harrison Ford is in that show. And so I tuned in initially because I was intrigued, but I actually really love the show. I love the characters. It's about a bunch of psychologists who work with different clients to try to help them, but the psychologists also have their own problems and their own issues, and they try to help each other and figure things out. It's a single camera comedy, and not every joke lands, but there's a lot more than just, laughs in this show. You really start to care about all the characters. It really has become one of my favorite shows on TV. It's on Apple TV Plus. I don't think you should miss it. It's really cool. It's made by Brett Goldstein, who helped to bring Ted Lasso together, and he co-created this show as well. It's made with a lot of heart, some really terrific performances, some great writing. I'm also a big fan of the other Apple TV Plus show, Silo. It stars and is produced by Rebecca Ferguson, who just kills it in this show as Juliette Nichols, who is this very competent, very put-together engineer who helps to keep this silo running. This underground silo filled with 10,000 people where people don't dare tread outside because some heinous things have happened. The show deals with the idea that how do you keep all of these people together and getting along, and they keep finding these relics from a distant time and all of these clues as to what has happened to force everybody underground. It's kind of a parable to the experiences of Fallout, but this is not really dark humor. It's really played straight, and there's a lot of intrigue and there's a lot of political machinations that are happening between the characters, a lot of rivalries, a lot of backstabbing, and some literal stabbing, and it's really well put together. The production values are incredible, and it looks so freaking good. I mean, it looks like they shoot everything with available lighting. The cinematography in this series is just amazing. Like, it really does feel like you can peer into the dark corners. I've been addicted to this and been watching it with my wife. We both love the show and can't wait to see how this season wraps up and how the show progresses from here. And another show that consumed me during the holidays was What If Season 3. Disney did something pretty cool where they were dropping a new episode every day. I'm really a big fan of this series, particularly because of Captain Carter, who was introduced in the very first episode of Season 1 of What If. I like the look and the aesthetic with it. I love that they're playing with the MCU characters in all these interesting ways. But I do have to say that initial Captain Carter episode is still my favorite out of all of the episodes that they've made with What If. And what they've done with Season 3 is they've put Shang-Chi into the Wild West, which was a pretty cool episode. I actually liked the Howard the Duck and Darcy Lewis episode where they get together and they have a romantic relationship and they have a baby. It's a little weird, but I actually liked the way they introduced it, and I thought the performances were pretty funny, and there's lots of cameos. And that's the whole conceit with What If, is that they take the MCU actors for the most part and they incorporate them into these stories that take us off on these interesting tangents. The only thing that I think about with the What If setup is that it is so tethered and tied to what we know of the MCU, so the shows just can't get as weird and as wild and as fun as they potentially could be if Disney and Marvel sort of went off into the further reaches of the Marvel Universe and gave us some other characters that maybe weren't tied directly to the MCU. We see that a little bit in this season, acknowledging what is about to happen, specifically with the X-Men a little bit, but there's also a lot of tiebacks to the overarching themes that we've seen in the What If series so far, which work to a degree, but I don't think they manifest in such a way that you're watching this season going, oh my god, everything is just so neatly tied up and it's wonderful. It feels like the show lost a little bit of steam with this third season. There are some pretty cool moments in here. I am a fan of Uatu, Jeffrey Wright's Watcher character. I love the way that he's incorporated into the backgrounds of these different episodes and stuff. I just didn't feel like the episodes of season 3 hit with quite the same punch that they did when this series was initially projected out to us. And maybe what happens with the show, I think they're taking a pause with What If, so I don't think there's a season 4 in the works right now. But as the MCU becomes embellished and new characters are introduced and new threads and new plot lines and new styles are kind of thrown into the mix, maybe there is a way to go back to What If and re-envision everything and shake it up. And maybe part of it is to kind of shake up the animation style as well. Because really, What If kind of introduces the multiverse as a real potential, right? The whole concept of What If is that we're jumping into all of these different possibles. And we, I think, saw a better illustration of what that could mean in the Multitude of Madness movie, where Doctor Strange was going through all of these different visual styles for all of these different planets. And there is a sameness to the stylistic qualities as we jump from these different time frames. I mean, I did dig the kind of mech Avengers that we get in the first episode where they all come together as these giant robots, but it had the same look as every episode of What If has. The one thing that I really did like about this series, this third season, was that Captain Carter does play a pretty integral role in it, and I am a huge fan of the character. I really want Marvel to make some kind of live-action Captain Carter project. I think that would be awesome. But I didn't like this season as much as the first or second season. I think that those were stronger, and nothing has reached that very first episode of What If. I was blown away. I mean, I bought multiple Captain Carter figures. They're behind me right now. And I love Steve Rogers and the giant robot, too. I thought that was just such a cool thing. But still, it's worth watching if you're a Marvel fan like I am. There's some nice little treats and surprises and fun callbacks. I'm going to give What If Season 3 a 7.5 out of 10. And the other thing that I was kind of obsessed with over the holiday break was Taylor Sheridan's work. He is very famous for Yellowstone, but he's also been a part of some really big projects, Sicario, Hell or High Water. I'm a fan of his stuff, Wind River. And on Paramount Plus, I basically picked up a month subscription, and I checked out the final season of Yellowstone, which I have liked episodes of that. I do like the characters. Thought the resolution was pretty well handled, but of course the big story around Yellowstone is that Kevin Costner opted out of returning, and so there was a very upfront kind of way to write him out of the show in the final episodes of everything. I don't know if Yellowstone is coming back. It's a little bit up in the air, but it's an intriguing tale of some ranchers in Montana and how they get sort of organized into criminal activities and how they integrate into the community, and they do a lot of heinous things in the pursuit of protecting the land and trying to keep the land that they own away from people that want to build on it and grow some revenue through tourism or some resource collection and stuff. And so there is a heroic kind of cowboy aesthetic here, but there's also a Sopranos-like or a Game of Thrones-like duplicity in the storytelling, and it's pretty compelling. It's soap opera-esque, but it's pretty compelling stuff. I have been pretty entertained by Yellowstone. I also caught the second season of Special Ops Lioness. Zoe Saldana leads this eclectic cast of characters. They're all playing these warriors that do these black ops missions for the CIA. They're always off the books. They're always yelling at each other, and they're taking down terrorists or cartel people. And in the second season of the show, I think things got much bigger in the action department. There's some pretty amazing, especially shot for television moments where there are some all-out battles happening and helicopters flying around and all kinds of people are dying. But it did get a little cartoonish for me, and it felt like, how the hell are all of these characters surviving in this hail of bullets that are coming in from every direction? There's chase sequences, and Taylor Sheridan himself actually is a big part of the second season of Lioness, and he wrote himself into a pretty cool character. It was entertaining for sure, but I found it to be just a little bit silly, a little bit way too over the top for me. And I did feel like every time we went back to Washington and we got into situation rooms and stuff, and Nicole Kidman plays this top-tier politician who is directly involved with the CIA and stuff, and she's partnered with Michael Kelly, but everybody was always yelling at them and saying, "You can't keep this off the book." It was always that same kind of, I'm going to fix this, I'm going to solve this, but nobody can know, and you're on your own, and nobody can tell the president about what's happening here. And there was just a lot of the same scenes kind of playing out over and over again. And then we'd cut to Zoe Saldana's team, and they were just blasting out of some ridiculous situation, but it was still very fun to watch. It maybe didn't have the same level of nuance and subtlety that we get out of other work that Taylor Sheridan puts together, but it certainly has some cool charms about it, and everybody's performance is pretty damn solid in this show as well. It's just not my favorite of the Taylor Sheridan oeuvre. I think what has become my favorite, though, is Landman, which just premiered the first season. Billy Bob Thornton leads the cast, and we've got also, again, another look at what it takes to manage oil drilling in this small Texas community where this independent oil company comes in and buys up a whole bunch of land and has to work with the community there, both the legal and illegal community, because there is a cartel and some drug running that is also a part of this experience as well. And Billy Bob Thornton has to kind of thread the needle on all of these really delicate relationships and these conversations that he has to have with people that are incredibly violent. And he also has all of this damage and refuse in his own personal life, which comes to the forefront here. And then there's some pretty heavy drama and some things definitely go wrong. And there's some insight into the thought process around what it takes to run an oil business in 2024. And I was really captivated. I thought the writing was really solid. Everybody's performance was really solid. Billy Bob Thornton, I think, is carrying quite a heavy load in here as this downtrodden guy who is too long in the tooth to be doing what he is still doing, working out in the field with all of these different characters and stuff. But man, I was really captivated. I was really hooked with this show. I didn't want to stop watching it. They've only done 8 episodes so far, but I think it's a big hit and I think it's coming back. But something that definitely I know about Taylor Sheridan is this man knows how to make compelling television and other film projects. He's just growing his mark out there. He's got his own huge studio and an actual ranch that rivals what the fictional Yellowstone Ranch is all about. Impressive character. And what's interesting is that he used to be on Sons of Anarchy. He was like the cop on Sons of Anarchy. And he has just been a part of so many cool projects that I'm a big fan of. And they also feel very alien to me. I don't really know that world. I don't hang out with cowboys and ranchers and oil people and special ops people. And so it's a really interesting insight into these different communities. And man, I was super impressed. So that's a little taste of the stuff that I got up to over the holidays. Of course, I had lots and lots of family time. We went snowshoeing, we went out for nice hikes and saw some beautiful Christmas lights and all kinds of really fun things with some of our friends out there. And I hope you guys also had wonderful holidays. But this is going to be a hell of a year. I'm excited about what 2025 is going to bring to all of us. The games are going to play, the movies we're going to see, the shows we're going to get hooked on. This is going to be a big year, you guys. And I'll be here covering all kinds of cool stuff, and I'll have some cool videos about 2025 very soon for you. Thanks so much for watching. If you dug this video, please hit that subscribe button, hit that little bell to be notified. Please let me know some of the things that you got up to in the comments below. We will see you soon, and until then, play forever.